Hip politics, baby. All right, let's get it started. We ready? All right, welcome back. We are for another episode of the Hip Politics podcast. You got your boy, your man Cameron Trimble, a.k.a. Mr. Cameron Calvin, a.k.a. Mr. Hip Politics, a.k.a. Mr. Communicator of Color, a.k.a. the 216 to the 202.
But he's not AKA.
But I'm not AK. No. And then to my far right, I've got my co-pilot, my co-host, Mr. Mike McQuarrie, a.k.a. DC Noob 90, a.k.a. Mr. Capitol Hill, the mayor of Capitol Hill, a.k.a. he used to throw your brother's favorite party.
For real. That's
I don't know why. I just if you
DC
cut a DC.
right here who you need to be talking to. That's
Exactly.
That's
And then in between us, we've got our guest today. I don't even know how to describe you, Cirilo.
Jack of all trades. Jack of all trades.
Mr. Connected, right. Mr. Get It Done. Mm-hmm. We have we connect there. Very passionate brother, HBCU alum.
Where the Rattlers at, y'all? FAMU in the building. That's right.
Okay. But he went to law school in what state?
Mississippi,
Mississippi.
Right. Mississippi College in Jackson. You know
there we
so
go.
I guess I'm like a Jew by way of Jacktown Jews. Man. Y'all gotta love that.
Nah.
Okay, well my man Cirilo's in the building of Black with No Chaser. I'm gonna tell the story of how I've met you, but I will say this: he is a political insider.
I was gonna tell my story
okay,
too.
tell your story. A political
yeah.
insider. But before we get started, just want to do some of our promos up front. You can make sure you follow the podcast on everything: iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Hip Politics Podcast. We're also on Instagram. At the Hip Politics Podcast. You can follow the Hip Politics News Network at Hip Politics News on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, or one-stop shop, hippolitics.org. You'll see we've got the new merch. The merch is out here. Got rocking a sweatshirt.
Merchandise.
We got some for merchandise. Yeah, we got some of the T-shirts, long sleeve tees, a few different things coming out, some buttons. We moving. We out here. The podcast keeps upgrading every week.
I know all this swag, man. I'm telling you what, I need to get some of this hip politics swag.
And we even putting people to work. We got intern opportunities.
Yeah, you got interns,
yeah. By the way, our intern Kayla, she won her race for CBA.
Oh yeah.
KP won.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So welcome. I want to say welcome, Cirilo.
Appreciate it.
Oh, there we go. That's why. Oh, I just unlocked the key.
I remember the first time I met you, I was actually working on Capitol Hill.
That's right.
For Sheila Jackson Lee.
That's
and
right.
Someone.
SJL.
Yeah, SJL. And you were a colleague of mine, Remington, brought you in to meet Greg.
That's right.
Greg, who works in our office. And Greg is brilliant. Works at, he's lobbied and practically for the Supreme Court and things like that.
That's a tough
And I remember
right there,
when
boy.
you said that you could have clerked for a judge. And you said you didn't want to do that. And Greg had like a fit. And I'm looking at, why is Greg having, who was this that said they didn't want to clerk for this, you know? And I said, I knew then that you were a special person because you took another road. And it brought you to where you're at right now. And you was passionate about that. You said, I didn't want to do it.
That's right.
And I was like, okay, whoever this guy is that has been in Jackson, you know, and from FAMU, HBCU, I got to get to know. And that's the first time I met you, and I was like, okay, he's a good guy. This is a good guy.
Yeah, man. I remember that day, too, because, I remember, being welcomed with open arms.
Mm-hmm.
Remington brought me around there. I didn't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And really, some of the first people I met on the Hill were you, Remington, Ease, a couple of folks, and I could think of off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the folks in the Committee of Homeland Security on the House side under Benny Thompson. So shout out to all those folks over there in the committee that's still in there, the folks that have been in there. But, yeah, man, that was my first group of folks that really poured into me. And so, I've been, honestly, this brother here, Mike has been every step of the way giving me counsel and really helping me out in ways that even he doesn't even know. So I appreciate him, man. And so shout out to everybody out there. Y'all got folks that are pouring into you. Make sure you give back to them folks, man. That's for sure.
Well, we're here. We've been talking about this for a minute. So I'm just glad to finally get you in the building. because we talk a little bit of everything when it comes to politics, when it comes to mobilization, when it comes to black people and the movement. And you're, like I said, you're a person I wanted to make sure we had on the podcast. I didn't really want to put any limits or boundaries on the things we could discuss. I think we can go a little bit, a few different ways. But I want to first start with you and your kind of a little bit of your background of what got you to be so focused on progressing the black movement. Because that's what in my mind, what I would say the one biggest thing that I can always kind of come back to, like, what is Cirilo working on? It's something that's progressing the people forward. Yep. And if it can be, it may be even more niche. It's something that's progressing minorities, black people, or just minorities in general. So what is it that got you to this point to be a person that's been like a motivating driving force through kind of your personal and professional life?
Yeah, man. Actually, it really didn't start here in D.C. because I'll be lying and say if I started here in D.C. Like, I come from my mom was an organizer. You know what I'm saying? She was into politics and really planted a lot of seeds in me, whether if I want to turn that way or not. You know what I mean? Eventually, here I am doing politics and organizing our folks. But if I really want to drill it down to how it started, it was more so when I was working as a intern in law school in the public defender's office in Jackson and Hinds County, right in Jackson, Mississippi. Like one of the public defenders really knew I had a passion for criminal justice reform, and so like many of us, right, who are interested in freeing ourselves from low-key almost tyranny and over policing of our communities and trying to figure out ways to make sure that we are not our own worst enemies sometimes.
Was this in Jackson or just
It was in Jackson. And so she actually showed me a chart that really listed out all of the violent crimes, those quote-unquote violent crimes in Mississippi. Of those violent crimes was a statute. It was the statutory rape statute. But before I even understood what that meant, she asked me, she was like, what do you see abnormal about this particular board? And on that board, it was a bunch of statutes that honestly I didn't really know what I was looking at. I knew I was looking at it, but I didn't understand what was abnormal about it. And it was actually a white woman that actually brought me to this board and brought this and shed some light on what was going on. And so, she gave me about like a couple of minutes, couple of seconds or whatever to kind of like figure out what that was. And then she was like, look, time's up. She was like, I want you to go down to the statutory rape statute and I want you to pan out from left to right and kind of see just the numbers. In those numbers in Jackson, Mississippi, or Hinds County, I should say, at the time, those convicted under the rape statute was like 94% black people, which were in turn black men. And immediately I saw a disparity because then the next logical question was, well, what is the demographic makeup of Hinds County? And if I'm remembering correctly, and I could be right or wrong, I think that it was like 65% or so black. So I was like, well, okay, so you got 94% being convicted, right? But only 65% are accounted for the population. So then clearly there was an issue there. And then I added the next question was, well, what's the age range of those being convicted under the statute? There was an abhorrent amount of young people in high school, right out of high school, or people that were 19 or still in high school and engaging with young girls in high school. And at the time, if you're young, you're not really thinking about the fact that, hey, look, like, this is something that's going to, you don't know what it is, right? And so, but what was happening is they were actually being railroaded by the criminal justice system. And so long and short is we started doing organizing, me and my boy Keith French, which then we formed Progress Mississippi, which still kind of does its thing to this day. It was four of us. I'll mention the name Keith. It was Latia. It was Lacey and me. We kind of started this thing, and so actually it was me and Keith going around and talking to all the majority black high schools, talking to young boys and young girls and high school girls about like, hey, look, like, let's not be complicit in our own demise. And so we started doing that, and from there we started organizing voter registration things on the west side of Jackson, where MC Law was at. And so from there, I really got my first thirst in just like actually really organizing and doing something from the grassroots level. And then, to be honest, like from there, I had a conversation with a couple of folks in school, got an internship on my last leg of law school at MC. in the Committee on Homeland Security, and so goes like my entire career. And really, so I would say is like I didn't know I was going to even be in politics, and that's why I tell people like my dream actually did choose me, because like it was one of those things where. You know what I mean? Like I thought I was gonna do entertainment law. I was about to be a transactional lawyer. I'm about to be helping all these athletes. Like this brother sitting in the room right here, thinking he's about to go doing this over here. So that's why I find it funny when like this is what I'm gonna be doing when you.
Some
21.
people do. Some people go that route. But like I'm the same way. Politics kind of chose me. I mean, I was probably predestined for it and set up for it based on what my family does and going to Howard, being in D.C., being in student government, but it still chose. You know what I mean? It chose me. Like scenarios came up the same way. So and then, I can definitely.
And it really just to add really quickly about like where we at now. I think that like in terms of Black with No Chaser and like what that really means to me and to everybody a part of BWNC is really we created something that was really for us and by us, and something that we can actually like use as a platform to elevate and amplify the voices that are out there that are bubbling below the surface. Cover the politics and cover news how we see see fit. And so really we see ourselves a bunch of just like Black documentarians, if you will.
So can I think you got it a little ahead of it. Explain Black with No Chaser. What is Black with No Chaser? I mean, I know it is, but for the people.
No, so Black with No Chaser is a Black-owned and Black-operated media and news, multimedia and news company. Conglomerate, right? We for the past 2 years we have built a respectable, if you will, following, across various social media platforms, and honestly, like. It's weird because one day we had 0 followers, and I look up 2 years later and we're touching almost 400,000 people in terms of just sheer like organic reach. And then we took a look at impressions. Every month we're touching 15 to 20 million people every month, and that has a certain level of responsibility to the folks that we believe that we serve. And those folks are actually like Black communities throughout the entire country, but also see us as a global citizen and how we portray and push out Black narratives generally. And so what we do is hope the fact in this next year we begin to infuse more of our influence into politics, into pop culture, mainstream media, because we realize there's definitely a void there, and so we want to kind of be that media voice for our communities.
Would you all like get involved with like campaigns?
We would. I think that we've been talking about that internally about what a BWNC stamp would look like. I think that coming to the platform, you're not gonna just come to the platform and thinking you're gonna utilize the platform without signing something to where we can then in return. As some type of pseudo pack, if you will, begin to hold politicians to the fire, feet to the fire for things they promised us. And so we're not really in the business of just giving platforms to politicians because you're a politician. We don't necessarily need you because we've done what we need to do. In fact, we believe that you need us and you need the actual like Black communities behind you if that's what you think your thing is as a candidate or as a lawmaker.
So what are some of the issues you think are not that need to be amplified that are not being amplified and that's you all want to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, one is at the end of the day, I think it's gun violence and how we actually like how mainstream media is really mischaracterizing gun violence across the board and really making victimizing and humanizing one side, and when I say one side, I mean white folks when things happen, and then also victim blaming and then mischaracterizing what Black people are going to on a day-to-day basis. I think another thing that we need to cover more of in this country is what's happened to our little Black girls across this country that are going missing. And I will say, though, I want to say this right now because we're IG Live, is that what allegedly has happened with the little girl, I think in NYC, who has quote-unquote staged
I just saw that headline.
The her being abducted or kidnapped, is that let's not use this isolated incident as a way to discredit the work or what's happening globally to little Black girls and Black women across the board and how they're being targeted and that's actually going uncovered. And so let's make sure that we're clear about we don't want to take an isolated incident and then put that put that shadow over the entire on what's happening globally. And so I would just say that that's probably two main things, but also criminal justice reform. We're still not there yet. I think also too, though, we realize that black folks clearly are when we see our living conditions day to day, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, no party has really served black community justice in this country. And so I'll go on record saying that. If you have, then like show me the proof. If I want to channel the black deity of James Baldwin, I don't need to look anywhere. I don't care about your words. I look at our actual like schools. I look at our books. I look at our labor unions. I look at our hospitals. I look at our healthcare. I look at our education system. And so when you look at the entire gamut of policy that's being driven in this country and who's been the beneficiaries of these policies, it hasn't been black communities.
No, that's deep. I would say kind of as it relates to that, there hasn't been that space and there hasn't been. I don't think there has been enough pressure put on the powers that be, whether it be political people elected to political office, even to the greater community, and like holding the general public accountable as well, to make sure they're focusing in on that and make sure we're writing for that. Because I think what's beautiful about your the platform of Black with No Chaser is that just because we're Black with No Chaser doesn't mean we're anti anybody else.
That's true.
It's just that there needs to be outlets, and I tell people this all the time when working in the communication space. It's like you got Latino focused outlets, you got Black focused outlets, not to exclude anyone else. It's just that we've given general media decades opportunity to like, hey, y'all could have figured it out and been covering the stuff, but if I can only go to Black with No Chaser, if I can only go to The Root or a couple other, Blavity, like 2 or 3 or 4 other sites, Hip Politics, if I can only go to a few sites to get this kind of information and things that's going out there, or something that's not buried all the way, I gotta click 3 screens over on CNN just to even get a blurb about it. If I'm lucky, then it's like we wouldn't have built these kind of platforms or had a need to do it. Yeah. Because the news is there and the message needs to get there. So I mean, I applaud what you guys are doing. It's like, I mean, there's things that believe me, you guys are both role models and information sources. And I know we've talked off camera about potentially working together and doing something like just to really get it out there. Something else I wanted to talk to you as it related to kind of hip hop and politics and politics that affect our generation is organizing. I've seen you've dabbled, whether it be fully for like, knee deep in something, or even just helping through advice, but also just helping through having your fingerprints on different organizing efforts in different organizations and so forth. First, one thing we try to do on this platform is kind of just break and demystify what the political process is and everything, both the players, the game, and the rules. Can you just talk about what it means when people say like, oh, organizing or national organizer? What does it mean to be an organizer?
Yeah, like organizing can really happen at any scale. I don't think like if you organize one person, right, and it's you and another person, and you actually bring that person to the polls for you to go vote, then in my mind, you're an organizer, right? You could be organizing on like social media platforms where like maybe you don't have to bandwidth like maybe touching people every single day, but as a digital or more social media like crusader or organizer, you can do it on that level. But when people talking about like national organizer or like, grassroots versus grass tops, what does that mean? Grass tops is basically, all the organizations that got all the money, right, to re-grant a lot of things that are like, in this DC Beltway bubble. But to be honest, like a lot of the real work are happening at the grassroots level. To me, most, if not all, politics are happening locally, right? Mm-hmm. And so while we give a lot of, like, mainstream media gives a lot of attention to what's happening on a federal level, and rightfully so because they have a larger following, and that's how kind of, like, people follow, mainstream media. But to be honest, like, the most effective organizing happen on a local level, and like pushing back on city councils, forming organization. Also, it doesn't have to always be in politics, to be honest. Like, you can organize a community of people that are like, let's say if you are organizing only like people that are vegans, right? And maybe vegans that have a take on politics. But the main thing is that look, it doesn't matter how many you're organizing, where you're organizing. The main thing is that if you are actually engaging people and trying to push them in civically engaged, and when I mean civic engagement, I mean this time in politics, voting, right, on particular issues of candidates, because there's two sides of politics. There's issue-based advocacy, and there's actually electoral politics. And so whether or not you're behind a candidate or you're working with a team that's behind a candidate and organizing folks within your communities, or if you're on an issue like healthcare or criminal justice reform or gun violence prevention, these things are all like the ways in which you can organize. And I don't know if I hit it on like exactly everything.
No, yeah,
that's
definitely, like, because I think one thing I hear a lot, I hear a lot from the hip hop and especially younger community of people when you out in the streets, people who are definitely outside the bubble. They're like, oh man, all that's going on in Washington, but somebody can't fix my roads, or we need extra stop sign. Like our police community, our policing in our community, we feel like we're over policed, or something's going on. We're under resourced in our schools. Small things that attach, like come to them directly in their neighborhoods, and a lot of people feel helpless. And I always say, like, vote. Because you can vote for a lot of people who at every level of power, who can check off, who can approve those budgets, who you can hold their feet to the fire, because if they're not doing what you put them in office to do. Yep. But in that local organizing, so as a person who, I know whether you volunteered or worked for different for what?
I got a great example about what that looks like.
Yeah, what does it look like to people out? If I'm here, if I'm in the streets, or I'm in the hood, I'm in a local community from Cleveland to Houston to Philadelphia, anywhere, any major city, or I'm even not in a city, but I want to organize. I want to get involved in the process. What does even local organizing look like for me if I'm hearing this?
Yeah, I mean, local organizing looks like Dream Defenders down in like Miami, Florida, right? When they organized and did sit-ins, and they were in the Capitol, years and years ago before they became what they were to this day. Mm-hmm. Local organizing does things like pass Amendment 4 in Florida that now gave, some are almost 1 million people the right to vote or be re-enfranchised in the state of Florida, and that actually changed the entire scope of politics in Florida. And so even on that
that's
level,
big. That's big for you guys. We're going to dive deep into that one episode.
And really quickly on that, though, there are 67 counties, I believe, in the state of Florida. In those 67 counties, the one seat, when we talk about criminal justice reform and how can we help ourselves, there are 67 sheriff seats up for grabs. And so when you're looking at elected officials who can really decide the fate of what policing looks like in this country, DAs, right, district attorneys, and sheriffs really are the arbiters in which how they police communities, right, and the type of referendums and mandates they set forward. And so I would say is that if you're out there and you're a Floridian, right off the bat, locally, even within your own county, right, and sometimes counties be like 3,000, 5,000 people, you can make a seismic shift, and you don't have to wait for a federal election or whether or not Trump is going to be in office or whether or not, this person will get reelected. If you don't like the person in office on a local level, then go ahead, especially, again, in Florida, and figure out ways in which you can find somebody or get behind a candidate that can truly, shift the narratives in your community.
I think that's super big in terms of a lot of people don't realize that they can vote for the district attorney, they can vote for their sheriff, the county sheriff, and who that county sheriff is, like you said, they're the ones who can kind of set the tone, at least on the county level, and all the sheriff deputies on what they're going, how they're policing. They can hold the other officers. I mean, it might not work for your metro or your city police, but they are still part of that policing community, and what that looks like. So when you say just getting people together, whether everybody sit-ins might not be for you, but you got to do more than just tweet. You got to do more than Facebook, which is good to bring some attention, but getting people together, organizing, and then all these sheriffs and stuff, when they are up for the ballot, I feel like a lot of people, you need to go to their whether it's their debates, you need to go to their campaign offices, you need to go and register and show that force of like, hey, these are issues that we care about locally, and if you want our voting block. But none of this happens, and this is because I was asked this on the radio not too long ago. Oh man, if I don't even vote, because I don't think it makes a difference. If you're not voting, you're not registered to vote, and you're not voting, they don't care what you had to say.
Yeah. And
So to me, I always get back to like the basics. It's like, I know it sounds so basic, but register and actually go vote.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, all these people that you think you want to hold accountable, they not even it's gonna go one in out the other because they know I don't even need you to get elected.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting piece because when I was in Atlanta during the Dem debate, we helped host an event with the New Georgia Project, which was led by Black Male Voter Project at an event called Brothers Be Voting, and there were brothers there that were actually talking about why they didn't vote, and some of that was actually part of it. I think abstinence on like their right, and then they just don't see themselves in politics, and so I feel like there's a level of apathy there. And no change in the community. Some people were just like, yo, I just don't vote.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that may be generational, where people just didn't vote and didn't see the need to vote.
Or they didn't see anybody in their household going to vote. Sometimes taking somebody to the polls, a child, and putting them behind them curtains, it'll start. It'll spark.
Yeah, ignite something in them. Yeah. And so, like why folks don't vote, I try to be like sympathetic or at least empathetic to why folks don't vote. As somebody that honestly I didn't vote until really Obama was running for office, and so that means that 4 years before I became like from 18 to 22, I never casted one ballot.
Right.
And since then I've been voting in every election, but also because I've become more acutely aware about how my vote actually matters. I'll give you one example, right? So Constance Slaughter Harvey, who is the first black woman to attend Ole Miss Law School, second black person to attend Ole Miss Law School, used to always share with the R. Jess Brown chapter of the Black Law Student Association of Mississippi College, and also the Ole Miss chapter where she is the namesake, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she literally used to give us countless examples about people in Mississippi winning off 1, 2, 50 votes when there are literally like thousands of people in the county or in the district. And so she used to always say, look, if you think your vote doesn't matter, tell that to the actual Republican or tell it to the person that you don't see as somebody that fit to actually represent you. Tell it to the person that actually won with the one vote for the person that actually felt like they should be in office. And then I'm telling you right now, you'll realize really quickly that on the local level, majority of these races are won by less than 500 votes. And I would go out on a limb and say it's even slimmer than that sometimes, unless like the favorite has been in office for years and years and years, and they got the incumbent juice or whatever. But a lot of times, though, man, like especially in an open seat, these races be tight. And so don't think for a second that like your vote doesn't matter, because definitely on a local and state level, your vote definitely matters.
It was
like,
funny.
Definitely.
The Congressional Black Associates had their elections yesterday, and the new president won by 4 votes.
Who won?
Didier.
Didier won.
Didier won.
Wow.
I mess with Didier. I got to get him on. We got to get him on a podcast.
Did Paul win?
Paul lost. Which Paul? For vice president?
Yeah.
No, Paul lost.
Damn.
Paul lost. But
Damn,
yeah,
man.
it's 4 votes. It was close. For president, I mean, I could only imagine what it felt.
The
elections
for the
I've had have never
listeners,
been
we're
that
talking
close.
about the Congressional Black Associates.
Mhm.
These are the black staffers on Capitol Hill.
Doing
which
a
I think-
phenomenal job.
Yeah, we were both alumni.
Shout out to CBA, man. I wasn't
Shout
in
out to
CBA when I was on the Hill because I technically was not a staffer.
Oh, that's changed now.
But anybody can
interns now can become a part and vote.
And fellows,
It's kind of funny because our Japera was an intern in my office, and they had she won on a write-in vote to be parliamentarian because our office just voted for her.
Right.
And now all of a sudden she's a officer with CBA
Parliamentarian,
of
yeah.
write-in. And write-in votes, that go to show you she won by just 2 people voted. And she got parliamentarian because no one else wanted to run, and 2 votes have made her parliamentarian. There's no telling where that might take her, just because she got elected by 2 votes. So voting is very important.
Voting
Very
at every
important.
level. Something I wanted to touch and just get your thoughts. 2020 election. This is going to air at the beginning of 2020. This will air soon. And I think that was the impetus. Like I've had this idea for hip politics for years. Me and Mike have been talking about doing a podcast for about 2.5, 3 years. For 3 years it took us this year to do it, but the impetus and like the urgency was there for us because of how monumental 2020 is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we hear it all the time. This is the most important election ever, but it's like, as a person on the inside, I'm like, and seeing what Trump is doing and how he's really kind of has shaped literally the political mindset and the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And now Congress, who I thought would never move like the way it's moving, because I've got a ton of example with Obama and the last George W. and so forth. Like, oh, Congress not going to cave to the way this guy works. They have beyond caved. Talk to me about what are your thoughts on, like, who do you think should be coming out of the Democratic? You don't have to endorse. I'm just curious to how your mind is looking at it now that we've had a few people drop out. We'll probably have a couple more drop out before the Iowa caucus. What are your thoughts on, like, who's running for president? What do you think it's going to take to beat Trump?
So yeah, it's actually feel like a loaded question because like what would be good to beat Trump, or what we think based on conventional wisdom will be good to beat Trump? What a poll saying to beat Trump? To me, I'm a Democrat, and so I don't want to necessarily speak for everybody here. But one thing about it is that, like, what Democrats do really, really well, I feel like when we're at our best, is we're talking about the sticking to the issues. Like, I don't really care about a Donald Trump. I think people really want to see how are we moving issues in a particular way that's going to help our everyday lives. All this trying to figure out how we're going to beat Trump, then you end up literally ostracizing, constituents, right, and potential voters from a simple fact that, like, well, we want to get rid of Trump, but we don't know exactly if we get rid of Trump, if you're going to ask, what can you deliver on? So really not offering like a soluble solution to what we feel like is Trump is the issue in this country. Right. And so, like, I would just, like, maybe that's part of it, but to answer, like, the question about who I think would, give us the best thing, I really don't have anybody in mind right this second, to be honest. I've given money to, like, literally every candidate of color. It's unfortunate that Harris had to drop out because she didn't have funding. And I just want to say a tidbit about that too, is that people will look at Harris and think that, oh well, Harris. We talked about this on a Citizens Pod the other day. It was me and our CEO CJ talking about why we think Harris did or did not get the funding. I think a part of it was she got deemed with the top cop. Message, and like that was that.
Remember when we had Maya from Blavity on? She said she's going around talking to black youth, and they were like, "Man, she's the police."
Well, she the police,
and
right?
that was the police that was locking us up for truancy and marijuana and things that she wasn't. They didn't feel she had enough of a progressive opportunity, because when you're in at the most popular state in the country, one of the literally most popular areas, I mean, California would be like a top 20 country in the world by population.
Probably
so
higher.
Higher than that, probably think top 15. I know it's a top 10 economy in the world.
Yeah,
number
so
8.
Number
8.
You got that much power over that many people, and you could do a lot more to help change a broken system if you know it's broken. And it just to people on the outside and what they were able to dig in, they didn't see that she used that opportunity. So if I give you a higher office, does that mean you're gonna do the same thing?
Yeah, no, and I feel that though, and I think that, like, look, like, we want to be able to diffuse a little bit about, like, what that looks like and we understand what AG means to the entire state. And, like, a lot of times AGs, if folks don't understand the difference between a DA and an AG, right? Because I think it's important to understand what these two positions actually entail. AGs, now, well, she was an AG and a DA, so, like, but when she was the AG, the top attorney for the state, her office is in position to work more city and state, like, actual major, like, you know what I'm saying, like, they're like the arm of the government, right, they're like the DOJ, if you will, of the state, right, in so many ways. The DAs do have more influence on who's being prosecuted, who's what laws should be enforced harsher than others, but a lot of times also politics too, because then now you got the lawmakers saying that these things are important, which driving the politics in the state, which is making DAs, kind of like operate in a particular way. And so, when she was, but I will say though, is at the same time, like, I think that, like, if you're in politics long enough, you're always nobody's gonna be perfect. We can look at Harris and say like, hey, look, she was not perfect, and in fact that she took a hard hit.
They all got. I mean, you got Biden trying
But
to
you
live
gotta-
down so many. All of them got. If you're gonna take votes that are you gonna have to defend later.
You're gonna have to defend later, and you have to make a stand at some point, though. And so, like, she definitely was somebody to me. Somebody that was at least willing to waste political capital, right, and to spend a couple of dollars, if you will, of her political capital to believe in something. I think that what I don't like about some candidates is that like you have some folks that are literally like not willing to make a move, and I think though this is some part about like we put out an article on Black with No Chase about the future black candidates. Like if you came into this space, what does it mean to be an authentic black candidate? What it means to push for black issues and really do that in your way. I think that sometimes though, like Harris seemed like she was being inauthentic. There was those couple of moments on like the Breakfast Club. There were some times like she got caught off guard in media and people asked certain questions and she was like and so like man, sometimes like just be yourself.
We say
be
as a
yourself,
person who's counseled and consults for different candidates. We say that all the time, but that's way harder to quote unquote be yourself, especially when you got all the pressure, the cameras, and so many different outlets, and now we're in a super hypersensitive like landscape where there's a focus group for everything. So you say, man, I don't know if I'm really liking yellow. There is a yellow. We love yellow people. We love yellow people's organization. Yeah, I mean, we love.
I'm not laughing at the fact, but it's just like it's just like stuff. It's like groups for everybody.
There's
right?
a group for everything, and they get a disproportionate voice with social media, and people are always looking for scandals, so they might get picked up. So I get it. We tell people to be themselves. That's why, I mean, the best politicians are the ones who can be themselves, kind of be themselves, be authentic, and not say damned what the media says and coverage is, but they kind of find a way to like, hey, if I'm being true to myself, I'm going to continue to defend what I did. I mean, for what it's worth, that's why I'm I don't know if I'm a vote for Bernie, but I was like, yo, he feels authentic. Like he's a person who's at least through the race has stepped up to things that like, yo, when he's challenged on certain stuff, he's like, yeah, I just don't like this, or no, yes. Is Medicare for all going to probably raise our taxes? Actually, yes, it will. Now move on.
But, so I want to talk about that really quickly. That's an important point to make about raising taxes and what this means and how we pay for it. It's like Castro, who's one of my to be honest, like one of my favorite candidates in the race right now. Julian Castro, right from Texas, former Secretary of HUD, former Mayor of San Antonio. Look at his track record. The brother there has actually like been stellar across the board. It's unfortunate that he hasn't necessarily got any traction because he's not some like animated. I
think he's gonna be the VP.
But
that's just me.
I don't know. People say maybe the VP. Got Gillum being thrown out there a little bit about VP. You got Abrams still kind of in the mix. You got people talking about Harris could also be a potential VP pick. And so I don't know, man. But I do understand what you're saying about Bernie. I got folks that I know and I really respect on a lot of these campaigns. Bernie being in one in particular. And when Phil Agnew, who's a surrogate for another FAMU rattler, I asked him straight up, man. I was like, yo, why you riding with Bernie for real? And he was like, man, I don't know if I'm really riding with him for the simple fact that of like, oh well, because I believe in every single thing that Bernie has done over the years. He said, but one thing he has displayed is consistency. He said he's the same dude that's doing wild stuff being carried out, you know what I'm saying? But he's also the cat that for the past, last at least 8 years, talking about taxing the rich, the 1%, you know what I mean? So, like, having a consistent message as a candidate, I felt like
goes
so far because then people know you as a particular person or brand, and they know that to be true through your votes, through your politics, and through your policies and agenda. And I think that so in terms of like who I think will kind of stand the test of time, not necessarily who I endorse, I think the Bernie is going to be there. I think Biden catching the juice from Obama and being Uncle Joe, that resonates with a lot of voters out there. Whether I necessarily subscribe to that, is another thing. But I do think like Yang brings up honestly a lot of interesting points. I don't know if I'm necessarily think it's going to work. But people are behind the Yang gang is real.
Yang gang is real, and he's a person I'm glad is in the race.
Why?
He's a person.
Yeah, it's like why?
There's a couple reasons. One, the same way that what an Obama did, or what what a Jesse Jackson and a Shirley Chisholm had to do by getting in a race in the 80s, in the 80s, and being somewhat viable. I mean, maybe they're not fully viable, but at least getting in the race. And then they paved the way for an Obama to be there. That's like, hey, it's not so foreign that I have somebody here. I mean, Asian Americans, they're not all a monolith. Like, everybody's not Chinese, everybody's not Japanese, everybody's not Korean, but they do, or Southeast Asian and so forth. But they do still can connect, just even visually, to say, like, even if I'm Vietnamese or I'm Korean, but I can see a little bit in it, in the sense that, oh wow, this person is here, he's viable. It's going to inspire so many more people throughout all the various Asian communities. Just like, oh, I can see myself in that. So I'm there for that. And I like the fact that him being a tech guy, coming from that world. Different approach. Yeah. On a, I think his $1,000, his income.
Is it what's called
Universal? What is it? Universal. Don't give me the line.
Something income. Universal.
Universal income.
Universal. Something UMI.
But his like getting people $1,000 a month, like universal monthly income.
UMI. That's right.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting concept, and I think it can work in some ways. I don't know if it'll be instituted given the politics of it, or something like that. But so I like the fact that he has new ideas, and he's really kind of thought through some of these harder problems. I even like the fact that he constantly goes no tie, in the sense that he's bringing tech stuff to the full forefront.
Maybe redefining professionalism a little bit.
Yeah, because we're already there.
It's kind of
we're already there. DC's one of the last places that's like, DC and maybe Wall Street. They're like the last two places where you gotta have a tie no matter what. Like, I'm sorry, the day and age is just changing. We can do big business. You can do the highest level of business without a tie. I mean, billions and trillions of dollars are being generated in Silicon Valley, and forget
and flip flops and stuff.
So it's about the work. So there's just things like that I just enjoy, and it's not even just for Asian Americans and him being inspirational to them. I think it's getting all Americans used to, like, hey, it's not just black and white, and it's just like then it's not just black, white, and Latino. Like, we have several minority groups. Like, I can't wait till the next Indian American is up there. I can't, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to see politicians and see national figures.
I want to see
of
a
all
sister
races
up there with a head wrap on one day.
Yeah, I can't wait to see openly like Muslim wearing a hijab. Like, we need to continue, because that's what the country is. Like, we are a rainbow. Like, we are not just a melting pot. We're a salad mixed. You know what I mean? Mixed up. Like, we are a full. What's the word I love? Cornucopia of people and colors and races. That's kind of what America represents. So I just appreciate that he's there. That even if I doubt he's going to win. But for the fact that he's getting real traction and he's creating a space.
He's there, man. Look, I'll be real with you. When we talk about this stuff on BWNC, like, man, especially on Twitter, bro, like, not everybody's stomach for Joe or Bernie, man. There are a lot of folks out there really hashtag ganging it, right? And these are black folks, and what I see is really a lot of, like, young black males really pouring into Yang's platform. And whether or not, like, again, though, right, this is what's going to solve all the problems. It's good to see us have national debates about what's going to be best for this country, what's going to be best for, like, us black folks in this country, because, like, at the end of the day, like, getting that to and normalizing these particular things is really the first step in how we begin to move legislation on Capitol Hill, but also, like, how we begin to reimagine what we look like and how our politics show up on a local and state level. And so, to everybody out there, again, you know, politics happens more on a local level, I mean, in terms of our everyday lives. And so never forget about the fact that, like, there are people right now determining the fate of what's going to happen like, literally in your city council, your streets, right? What's going to happen, whether or not you're going to get a stop sign or not right there, whether or not you're going to actually, like, somebody's going to protect you on if you late on your water bill, who's going to, like, what kind of laws are in place in that. I mean, like, literally, like across the board on how we live our everyday lives. And so I would say like, yo, pour more into those folks, but definitely like keep a close eye on all these candidates on the stage, and that's including. And I will say who needs to get out the race. Steyer ass need to go. Right? I mean, come on,
Tom
man.
Steyer?
Tom Steyer got to go, man. He got the money last, right? And this what goes
What do you
back
think
to
about Bloomberg?
Bloomberg got to go, man. Honestly, look, but look, long money, I get it. Long money, they say your luck could change sometimes, man. But I hope to God, bro. I mean, those are the only two people I wish that would just like leave the race.
Wow.
And put their money into just. If you really about getting Trump, like just do general advertising, like help support
Give it to a PAC, man. You got enough money, man. Like they got some PACs that would love to have your money, man. But you won't get into a race because it's more so about you.
The person that you don't want.
It's the person and the concept to me. I am for both in this, and not that I'm a capitalist too. I'm not a hardcore capitalist where I'm a capitalist above being a human.
Ooh,
so
the difference between capitalism and socialism.
Yeah, I'm a capitalist, so I do believe that like, hey, if you work hard and you create something that creates value and you're able to attain billionaire status, that there's there. I think the system is super messed up that allows people who are already winning to win more. So I'm not a favor of that. I'm not going so far to say there should be no billionaires, or I'm not there. But I just think that they're so disconnected from it. And part of the reason our fake billionaire we have in office right now, I think people are voting. Some people voted for him because it's like the aspirational thing of like, yo, he's where I want to be. And they, in their mind, because not everybody thinks they're going to be a millionaire, but I guarantee you most people at some point have had a thought like, ooh, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. And Donald Trump represents the billionaire that I think poor people think they would be. Like, oh, I say whatever I want to. I can do whatever I want. My name is everywhere. I got gold toilets and sinks. You know what I mean? Like, I got a hot young wife. Oh, she gets too old. Let me sub her out for a new, hotter, younger wife. You know what I mean? Like, let me put my like. He's acting like reckless. Like he's like a TV video game billionaire to people. And I think Bloomberg sends the wrong message. I need to go no further than stop and frisk, and why did it only take you to get into this race to say that, and the fact that if you're gonna run as an independent, you're not a real Democrat, because we have decades of experience showing how you switch both parties, how you just even in the last election supported so many people in the Republican legislature and so forth. So it's not like you're a party person. Like if you want to, I understand we have a two-party system, so it's kind of set up that way. But hey, man, you got enough money, be independent. I'm glad he's not independent, because then I think Democrats will definitely lose and Trump would win. Right, exactly. And then Tom Steyer, again, he's already shown the ability to build coupled with Next Gen and a couple other organizations. Continue to put your energy and money there, but for you to be the face of it,
you don't think those two will beat Trump?
I
think a lot of people could beat Trump. I don't think Bloomberg would beat Trump.
Have you ever seen a movie and you seen that movie and you see a movie, right? But no matter who the characters are, the narratives stay the same. Mm-hmm. Like, to be honest, like America, like we've seen our fair share of white guys running this country, and not saying that like a white guy could actually run this country. I'm just saying that maybe give somebody else a chance. You know what I mean? Like, I think that like we're okay if we miss 10 more presidencies without white guys running this country. There's enough of them in Congress. There's enough folks in local and state levels for last as a lifetime. And my lifetime,
in the Supreme
your
Court.
lifetime, in the Supreme Court. And so those narratives, right? We don't necessarily need to figure out how those narratives float to the top, because they're already there. What happens when people of color or at the top of the food chain in terms of calling shots, generally speaking, there's a way in which that people can begin to like relate to politics in a different way. I honestly know people who have a lot to say about Barack Obama, what he did or did not do for black folks. But what he did do for black people, especially young black boys and girls who were the first president ever seen when they were growing up in 8 years he was in office, was seeing a black man as president. And that is powerful. I don't care how you want to slice it, how you want to dice it. I'm not here to get into politics and policies of what Barack Obama did or didn't do. But what that did is to give true hope and a different reality for a lot of people in this country. And honestly, though, there are a lot of people in politics working in D.C. right now and all across this country that have gotten into politics because of him. And so we've created a new wave of energy, and that energy now needs to float to the top to where people of color, black folks, brown folks, right, they can actually see themselves in politics and be represented in Congress and at the highest office in the land, which is the President of the United States. And so that's what I'll say about that.
Okay. Well, we're about to wrap up, but you're not getting out of here without getting
One last question.
Mike, what's that question?
What's top 5?
Top 5 hip-hop artists.
Top
Dead
5.
or alive.
Right.
You
Now,
don't have to
look,
give
look,
us an
now.
order. You don't have to give us an
one
order.
no order, thank God,
No
'cause
order, but we do have a stipulation.
We do have a stipulation.
You cannot say Andre 3000 without Big Boy.
That is hold up, time out. That
can't
is
say
not
that.
the
You can't say
stipulation.
that
That's
shit.
him trying to
That
couch
can't-
it.
How you gonna say
No,
He's trying to create
you can
rules.
do.
And
You
not-
can
and not Big Boy.
Here,
I mean, but
can-
you can. That's like saying, okay, who do you like more out of Migos? Do you like
No, I
Offset? Do you
don't
like?
really- no.
No, I'm just saying, like, okay, no, let's be
No,
real.
no, no,
That's
no.
Before I
not
say this, though,
good. That's not
We're
good.
asking.
That's
We're
not
asking for individuals. You can't say the full.
he said, don't
Wu-Tang.
even do that, right?
Yeah.
You
That's not a
can't say the
comparison.
full Wu Tang. You can do if you want to do Andre 3000.
Like,
you
if
want
I
to
say
do
the
Big
locks,
Boy.
right? I could say like, yo,
You could Chic Luch. You could
say
say
Jada, or I could-
you could
I'm
say
just saying,
Jada. You
whatever.
could say, but you can't say the locks as a group.
'Cause it-
I think moving forward,
because they're
we're not-
rappers. It's S plural.
Yeah,
right?
so we're trying to
thought
say
it was-
singular raps because we let a few people say Outkast.
So you can't
and now
include them.
No, they needs. That's 3 different people.
So I feel like you
So
have to
you
go back
saying
who
they're
your
not-
favorite
they're not
rap
in the top
groups of all
5?
time.
That's
Top
a whole
5, that's
different.
older than
Yeah, that's a
discussion,
whole
I feel
different.
like.
Who is your top 5 rappers, hip hop artists?
Top 5 rappers. Yo, so straight up right out the gate, man. I'm from New Orleans, so like to be honest,
Louisiana.
I mean Lil Wayne would have to be right at the top. Not even like necessarily in particular order, but I got to shout out to Lil Wayne, man, and everybody. And honestly, I'm gonna just say this because I'm breaking the rules. Majority of rappers coming from New Orleans I love and generally love because we put out good rappers over the years. And
No,
so,
y'all are top
but
5
if I had to
cities
pick
of
one
all
out of there,
time.
Lil Wayne or Juvie would be like in that mix, right?
So you got Lil Wayne. You
Lil
say
Wayne.
Lil Wayne and Juvie?
No, damn, it's so hard, man. Cause like,
Is
so
that your top
admit-
5?
No, I don't. No, I'm gonna pick one person from New Orleans, right? And I'm gonna say that's Lil Wayne, right? I'm gonna
Okay,
pick one.
so we got Lil Wayne.
I'm
We
gonna
got
pick
one.
Rap, right?
Got one.
And not in terms of business mogul, because I would probably pick Master P in terms of like just cultural, like just doing it up, right? But if I had to pick one, it would be Lil Wayne. I think I'm gonna go regionally here, right? So
You don't have. You
I
put
know
these restrictions on yourself.
no, but I think too though. I'm a Drake fan, so I mean people hate Drake and they say he a simp and he's sentimental and he too like whatever emotional. I think Drake in terms of sheer numbers and if you would argue me or whatever like that, but the brother really does have the Midas touch, and so I
and
would
he
say,
make good songs and he can rap.
and
So
so now we got 2 people flowing from Young Money, Cash Money. So I don't know, maybe I'm just biased, right? I think another one too is you got to put Jay-Z up there. Jay-Z, just what he's done for like the whole damn game. Like Jay-Z would have to be in that top 5 mix. People that really, honestly, that I listen to a lot, but I wish he never really like stopped making music was DMX. I would put DMX in that mix
In your
for my
top
top
5? I
5.
give you that.
Yeah. DMX is like, I remember in middle school, man. He like, I feel like DMX was like. I felt like he was like I put DMX in some regard over like even like New Orleans rappers. That's the way I feel about DMX. And lastly, man, I think this is tough, man, because there's so many good rappers, man.
5 is tough.
Damn, top 5. So I will say this though. Another one for me is Slick Rick. So I'll put him in there because I think what Slick Rick meant to rap. Really, as it was like coming like in his like infant stages, being storytelling. Yeah. So Slick Rick, man, I like my older cousin really was a Slick Rick fan, and I don't reason why. So I would say Pac, but sometimes to me though, top 5 rappers, not necessarily like what they've done to the record sales, but when I was younger, I couldn't really relate to Pac. So it's like now older, I'm like, yo, Pac is dope, right? But I think that like even Pac and Biggie didn't really like speak to me, you know what I mean? But the older me now, like but the younger me, no. But Slick Rick though, because my cousin used to always be like, he used to play him over and over and over. But I just love the delivery, man. I felt like it really, you never really got another sound like Slick Rick. and saw what he meant for storytelling and rap, man, and putting NYC on, bro. I felt like
in the jewelry game.
Yeah, in the jewelry game, yo. Like there was
And
children's eye patch,
Yo, it
jewelry
was just-
game.
he was a
children's
different cat,
story.
yo. Like I felt like I feel so bad because it got
And he got deported a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, well, no, that was a while ago now.
Yeah, he got deported.
I just feel
I mean,
like,
he's back,
man,
though.
you got,
He's back.
Because you got so many cats though that changed the game though, man. You got bruh, like from Outkast, Big Boy and them, Andre 3000.
Oh,
Jada,
we're not saying people ain't changed the game. It's way more than 10,
I
5.
know,
That
I know,
I'm
man,
saying,
but my top
what's
five,
your
I had to-
personal five.
my
That's
personal
interesting.
original
You the
five.
first one to say Slick Rick.
First one.
So we got Lil Wayne, we got
Wayne,
Drake,
Drake.
Jay-Z, DMX. I think you might be the first person to say DMX too.
DMX and Slick Rick though, man.
And Slick Rick.
So,
DMX might be in my top 10 though.
top 10 word. Yeah, bro.
I wish he was making. He still does make music, but he hasn't made songs or albums that I've connected with in probably like 8 or 9 years.
And right outside there, I had to put Kendrick though, man, because Kendrick
coming for it?
snapping, yo, snapping.
Wait till
man.
2020.
Like
Wait till this
Kendrick-
year. He's about to put something else up.
Kendrick, Chance is up there, and I would say the best because like Chance is still like he just like blew up like all of a sudden, so he didn't have the body of work.
See, I really haven't listened to him yet. But he canceled his world tour just the other day.
He did.
Yeah, he literally just canceled it.
He said he did it because he wanted to spend more time with his family.
And he just had a
I don't blame
newborn.
him, man. I don't
Yeah,
He
blame
got
him.
married last summer, and he
Yeah.
got a
What y'all thought,
newborn.
wait, real quick, what y'all thought about the album though? Like the new album.
haven't heard it.
Haven't heard it.
So I'm not the huge Chance fan to start off with.
Word. So like,
So acid rap I heard once or twice when it came out. I was like, whatever. I
Coloring
like
Book.
some of it. Coloring Book was cool. Coloring Book had some cool. I'm just not a fan of his delivery because like how his voice feels on a track always feels forced. It doesn't. His
it's
voice.
a unique sound. Maybe
It's
I'm in a
very unique.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like, maybe
he's
I'm in
very
that,
unique. He's very unique.
Yeah.
But even like you ain't want no problems. Like his rap style is cool, but he always still feels like he's not fully in the beat or in the pocket.
Yeah.
Like he don't give me a lot of stuff to ride to. His last album, I enjoyed damn near all his other features more than I enjoy his raps. You know what I mean? So it was like he had some cool songs. Like he had that song he had with Gucci Mane. I like. He's got a couple cool ass songs, but it's just like he's usually not the favorite part. He's not my favorite part of the songs he makes, except for Ultralight Beams. That verse on
Killed
that
it.
Kanye
Killed it, bro.
and
Honestly, that's
he
like
was
killed
perfect.
it.
He
Oh,
sounded
he killed
perfect.
it. He killed
So,
it, man.
but I say that to say that doesn't mean I'm not riding with his music. But as a man and what he means for just as a guy,
Generation and just, like,
generation,
doing- yeah.
what he's meaning for business, what he's meaning for hip hop and music,
Politics.
independence,
Yeah.
politics. Like I applaud
He's
him 10
organizing,
times.
folks.
He's
You see a
organizing
wave
for
of people
real.
moving the street because Chance said, "Yo, meet me
yeah,
here."
he helped us. Like, even when
That's some souls
when
to
we
the
worked
pole
with
on
March for Our
steroids-
Lives.
steroids.
Yeah, when we worked for March for Our Lives, we kicked off their tour in 2018, the summer tour in Chicago, in the South Side of Chicago.
Yeah.
Chance was like one of the leaders of that march, March Against Gun Violence, that we helped organize, and like just seeing him out in the streets, like him giving $1 million to the public school system, him organizing his big festival where a lot of the proceeds go back to help like Chicago organizations. He just what did he bought the Chicagoist? I think he bought like a website like to help like to help with media and so forth. Like his business moves, Rhythm and Flow. I don't know. Have you watched it yet?
Nope.
Oh, even though you can already find out who won.
Yeah.
That show is worth
Yeah.
watching on Netflix. Like
Real
it's a
quick, though,
really
I think
good.
we gotta
Cardi B
we
not
gotta
all
go.
over it.
we got a minute and 20, y'all. I just want to like wrap up. Y'all go ahead and say one
No,
more
no,
time
no,
for
no.
folks
Yeah,
out
we about
there.
to wrap up too.
We wrapped up. No, so that's where we at. So we got your top 5. Cirilo, I want to say thank you again. This has been a great conversation. Where can people find you?
Yo, so y'all can find me out there on social media. Really, just my first and last name on most things. So Cirilo Manego 3 on IG, C Manego on Twitter, and on Facebook. Well, just Cirilo. Cirilo, you know what I mean? So it's easy. I should be the first person to pop up all the time. So don't worry about it. It's easy to find.
And then you can find us again, the Hip Politics Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, hippolitics.org, with the website is kind of the one-stop shop. Again, we got the merch popping. You can follow me at Mr. Cameron Calvin on all social platforms. Mike.
DC Noop 90.
on all social platforms.
And lastly, make sure y'all follow Black with No Chaser on all the platforms.
Yes.
The only thing on Twitter is Black No Chaser, not Black with No Chaser, but on Twitter, on Facebook and IG, TikTok, Snapchat, we Black with No Chaser.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for another wonderful episode of the Hip Politics Podcast, Season 2. And we out.
Yeah.
Peace.
Boom.
Bang. Shorty, you the no filter. IG pic, no filter. You could get the no filter. I'ma tell her how it is, no filter. Shorty, you the no filter. IG pic, no filter. You could get the no filter. I'ma tell her how it is, no filter. I know you ain't come here long. Nah. I seen about 50, 11 bad bitches walking inside.